thank God we have people like Chris Farrell and Tom Fenton and Judicial Watch who are looking out for us and continuing to pursue the truth no matter where it leads. Chris Farrell, the Director of Investigations and Research for JW, is with us now. Hey, Chris, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. I mean, I say fine because, as you may know, I'm in Florida, and I'm on the east side. We were able to avoid, by the grace of God, a lot of the devastation where we were at. We're just above West Palm. We dealt with some, tropical winds, some tornadoes here and there, but nothing like, our brothers and sisters on the other side, on the Gulf there, on the Gulf side of Florida. Just devastation.
Horrendous to watch, and my best wishes, prayers go out to everyone who's been affected. It's not anything remotely like what folks have suffered over on the Gulf Coast, but this week, Judicial Watch, actually we had an event in Miami that we had to cancel just out of an abundance of caution, because we saw this storm looming down, and really nobody's ever really sure which way it's going to break, east or west or anything else. But so that's a minor inconvenience for us compared to the devastating effects of folks along the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, and the thing that's hard to imagine, and I've been in Florida now for 14 years, this has been the worst of what I've witnessed. And each time we've been fortunate enough where we've not had a direct hit in the east where I live and where offices are located. So we've been fortunate in that way, but to see the devastation and just the danger of this of Hurricane Ian, because it covered, for all intent and purposes, it covered the entire state of Florida.
Exactly. Even if you weren't in the direct path, let's say you're 200 miles away, you're still getting 50, 80 mile an hour gusts, which can tear up trees and flip, roofs off of buildings, and a lot of people don't realize the incredible force and impact of hurricanes, and I've grown up with them my entire life, and
you have? Okay.
Yeah, and so it's horrendous.
See, I grew up, I was on the West Coast in California. I keep telling the audience, I said, we grew up with earthquakes. Earthquakes had like about a 2.5 day cycle, right? But here in the East with hurricanes, they go on for 10 days. They go on for 10 days, though. Every 15 minutes, there's this new news cycle about the hurricanes. And I'm thinking, hey, don't you realize we got a lot of older people here? You're going to, launch some sort of massive cardiac arrest, event here, but anyway, it just goes to tell you, even the rather mature Floridians here are tough-hearted. They'll come back and put their pieces back together. But this is a process, as you know, Chris. I mean, they're talking. This could be up to a year that it will take to get things rebuilt.
Well, look at the impact of Katrina in
exactly.
the area. Well, generally New Orleans, but obviously a lot broader than that. But look at the impact there. It destroyed businesses. I have family members who are profoundly affected by that storm, and you just don't bounce back in 20 minutes.
Right, exactly. As I said in the opening, Chris, I'm so grateful for all the great work that you guys are doing on behalf of the American people to pursue the truth no matter where it leads. I don't know if you've had a chance to check out Unchecked, the untold story behind Congress's botched impeachments of Donald Trump. This is quite revealing. I mean, things that you and I talked about, others talked about, during the impeachment, and, what a mess it was. And now we're starting to look under the hood, so to speak, of the shenanigans of Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. We kind of suspected this and conjectured, but now to see it in writing. And, this is what is, quite revealing and wearing to people, because time and again, we're discovering the very things they accused Trump of doing is the very thing that they were doing, and the things that he rejected. I'd say the majority of the times he's been more right than wrong. He may have used the wrong language, like when he talked about, his offices being bugged. He said wiretapped, and I guess wiretap is an offensive term for the FBI. I don't know why, but it gave them, exception to take exception and say that, the president didn't know what he was talking about when that wasn't necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, that is a perfect example to use And, part of this, frankly, people don't believe me on this, but take it from a native-born New Yorker. And Trump's older than me, but not by a lot. I mean, a decade. But look, there's a shorthand manner of speaking in New York that the rest of the country doesn't necessarily always grab. It's kind of a glib, quick kind of manner of speaking that it's like a New York Post headline. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a manner of speaking. And when Trump said, Obama wiretapped me, he's absolutely correct. Now, that isn't the smoothest, most articulate way of expressing what was done and how it was done and who did what to who when. But the essence of that statement is 100% correct. Now, all the little pointy-headed technocrats in Washington, D.C. will run around screaming that that's an inaccurate statement. But the essence of what that conveys is 100% true. And these people like Schiff and Pelosi, who are serial liars, who have manipulated the public, lied to them for as long as they have, and their little underling Gestapo agents in the FBI, they facilitated all this. It was a slow-motion coup, and we're still feeling the effects of it right now.
Chris, are you sensing that the American people are starting to realize this more and more and getting to the end of this? Because, I mean, you've got Democrats in mass leaving the party. The Democrats don't even know what to do about Hispanics, which is hysterical to me because it just demonstrates just how little they know about the Hispanic people. Hispanics are leaving in mass because they just can't relate. There's nothing there for them and hasn't been for a long time, and especially with Biden doing everything he can to attack the very foundational cultural principles of the Hispanic people, family, marriage, their kids, education, security, businesses. About 40% are entrepreneurs. I mean, this is the fastest growing element of our industry is small business, and Hispanics are leading the way. And what is Joe Biden doing? He's doing everything he can to trip them up, over-regulate them, and make it more difficult. And so, like, they're supposed to go home and talk to the family, say, oh, we love Joe Biden. Are you kidding me?
Well, their hypocrisy was exposed when your governor brilliantly flew 50 Hispanics to Martha's Vineyard and dropped them off. That was the turning point in exposing their hypocrisy because the privileged, uber-left, ultra-rich, lily-white Martha's Vineyard crowd were, clutching their pearls and hyperventilating. That,
exactly.
Oh, look, these
Chris, got to go to break.
More.
We've got one of the jefes from Judicial Watch. He's the director of investigation and research. Chris Farrell continues with us. Chris, Joe Biden is just, I don't know, what can you say? Many, even from Fox News, my good friend Liz Peek just calls it a hot mess. It just is. I don't know. It's one of those gifts that keeps on giving, I guess, in some respects. But you're going, hey, look, I don't want this gift anymore. I mean, this is just a disaster. And you think that as desperate as Biden is becoming, and the situation that happened in Mar-a-Lago, I mean, this isn't by accident. This is all on Joe Biden, this administration, which is so totalitarian on its face. And people, I think, are still shocked to realize that we have a government that's doing this to a former president and other conservatives. I mean, this is like what happened with the Tea Parties during the Obama regime when they targeted Tea Parties and conservative groups and wouldn't give them tax exemption and did everything they could to kneecap the force and the political power that was being gained by the Tea Party. And Joe Biden is making it clear that it was the Tea Party yesterday. Today, it's MAGA country and anybody that wants to support Donald Trump. I mean, it makes you wonder if the next thing that Joe Biden is going to do is try to effect some sort of referendum south of the border and try and annex Mexico and Colombia and Guatemala, in the same way that Putin is doing, with Ukraine. Just kidding.
I can tell you that, with Obama going after the Tea Parties and using the IRS as a weapon, that was an attempt, that was really, they were setting up impediments or roadblocks to grassroots activists on the right, getting organized and kind of pushing back. That was insidious because it was an attempt to really suppress speech. Biden has gone leaps and bounds beyond that. He's actually, in this infamous Philadelphia speech, he has said that half the voting electorate are criminals.
Right.
He has said that the MAGA Republicans or grassroots conservatives, they don't respect the Constitution and they don't respect the rule of law. That means they're outlaws. That means they're criminals. And what you're seeing with the Biden administration is an attempt to criminalize his political opposition. And he's not just talking about Donald Trump, right? We see it play out against Trump personally. But, if you're a mom at home with kids in Iowa, you're a criminal.
Right.
Okay? If you're a small business owner, you got a landscaping firm in Florida, you're a criminal. That is what he's trying to browbeat people into submission. He's trying to make everybody kind of second guess. If Trump holds a rally, you really going to show up to it? Or maybe you'll be on a list. Maybe they'll track your cell phone. This is an attempt to intimidate people and to suppress his political opposition. And he's using every lever of the government to do it. He's using the FBI. He's using their public affairs departments. They put out a directive that every agency of the government is supposed to get involved in election security and promoting safe and secure elections. What the hell is the EPA going to be doing about elections? Well, guess what? The squirrel police are going to be running around in some way actively using government resources to suppress Republicans, conservatives, MAGA activists, and that he's put the full weight of the government against his political opposition. And we haven't seen anything like this. Not even that creep FDR did anything like this.
Exactly. Well, and Chris, what you're referring to earlier in terms of weaponizing half of the country against the others, you had that situation in North Dakota where that 18-year-old young man was killed by a leftist. He just assumed that this kid was a Republican, a conservative Republican, and he was deserving of death. See, this is the dangerous stuff about this rhetoric that goes out there. It lights people up.
But the irony is now what you don't see are enormous mobs of conservatives trying to burn down government buildings, not like BLM and Antifa. Right? Mm-hmm. So we're supposed to look at BLM and Antifa and a couple of years' worth of violence against persons and property, and you turn a blind eye to that, but about 3 hours of an unruly mob, and that's supposed to be the greatest threat to the Republic since, Pearl Harbor. I mean, it's such a dishonest load of garbage. You have this kid who gets killed by a leftist, and there's no, days of marching and burning down cities by the right. You don't see that. And while BLM and Antifa does it, they're just expressing their rage, and that's just the way it works.
Right, and you have a would-be vice president sitting there in the bail office and canceling bails and writing checks to get them out of jail, right?
And doing fundraising, right? She did fundraising videos for these people.
Unbelievable. About 4 minutes left here, Chris Farrell. JW has filed 2 FOIA lawsuits for records on the Biden raid of the Trump home. Break that down, if you would.
Sure. So first of all, we were the very first people to go into court and seek to have that search warrant affidavit unsealed. We beat even Trump's team into court to try to have that search warrant unsealed because it's essential to understand what the justification, what the rationale was. And, these lying dirtball, corrupt cops at the FBI, they go in and they lie to a politically compromised magistrate judge and have them sign off on something to justify the raid on the home. Well, on the heels of that, we're using the open records law to gain access to all the other documents, records, emails, text messages, all the back and forth to the Department of Justice and the FBI to find out what was going on to set up and to act on that warrant. Mm-hmm. And so the only way you get there is by suing the government and forcing them to produce these records, and that's what we're pursuing.
How long does that take, Chris?
Forever, sadly. It's a very, very slow process. I wish that it was instantaneous. The government is very good at being fast about record production when it's self-serving. When they want to look like they're big heroes and they're, geniuses, then they can turn records over in about 24 hours. But when it reveals their criminality and their corruption, then they drag their feet and play all kinds of little Mickey Mouse games. And they'll go in front of a judge and swear that, we can only produce 300 pages a month, and we're overwhelmed, Judge. We can't answer all these requests. And they sing a sad song. And many, many, many of these judges, you got to remember, they're just another government attorney, but in a black robe, right? So they're always very deferential to the government. And so stuff that should take about a week ends up taking months.
Mm-hmm. We're also getting a report here that you've sued California's Secretary of State for causing YouTube to censor key election integrity video just before the 2020 election. Break that down for us. We got about a minute and a half here, Chris.
Yeah, this is another creepy story of political operatives in the California government, in Newsom's administration, coordinating and synchronizing with big tech, in this case YouTube, but they do it with all of them. And they say, hey, look, if there's something out there that we don't like, or we think it's inconvenient, or it's embarrassing, or we don't agree with their editorial opinion on something, the Newsom administration communicates with big tech and tells them, take it down, take it off your website. They have active coordination and synchronization. The big tech firms act like the propaganda arm of Newsom and a lot of the other Democratic officials out there. And we're suing to get to that information and to document it. We already know it exists. They've admitted it. And we've gotten tons of other records on the subject, but we're just pursuing it in this case.
So what's the next step then?
We'll get the records and we'll make them public.
Make them public, and then, will there be any lawsuit any further than that will hold them accountable for doing this?
The question is, at what point would the American public be fed up with this corruption? I mean, that's the issue. We're trying to educate the public about the operations of government.
This is where we are, and thank you, Judicial Watch, for all the great work that Chris and Tom Fenton are doing on behalf of We the People. He's the Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch, Chris Farrell. Thank you, Chris. Take care.